Good afternoon, everybody. It is 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Thursday, April 3rd. Good afternoon, everybody. First and foremost, what a day we had yesterday across the entire Midwest, including Indiana. Today, we're going to take a look at what is going to come next. What is next on the pipeline now that we got yesterday out of the way? I know we've been kind of hinting at we still have an active pattern here that we need to get through before we kind of go into a more of a quiet pattern here for mid-month. So let's jump right in and talk about it. Without further ado, let's take a look at yesterday. Over 700 different individual warnings were issued yesterday by different National Weather Service offices there. In yellow are your severe thunderstorm warnings from yesterday. Red are tornado warnings, and those green polygons there um, are your flash flood warnings that were issued yesterday. So a large event that took place yesterday across the Midwest. Over 414 different wind reports across several states. We have 201 hail reports and 29 tornado reports. Again, these are storm reports, not confirmed events, but just spotter reports, public reports that went into the Storm Prediction Center's archive. So, again, a very busy day we had yesterday across the Midwest, including Indiana. Now, what comes next? That is the question that's on all of our minds here. And let's go ahead and time it out because we do have a lot to talk about here and not a lot of time to talk about it. We have a very active pattern here across Indiana here. The biggest thing to talk about is the rain that'll be coming here over the next 3 to 4 days through Sunday morning. Some areas in Indiana could see over a half a foot of rain. Yes, over 6 inches of rain are possible in some places of Indiana. We'll talk about where here in a little bit. Currently, we have flood watches across over 2/3 of the state of Indiana. They're in green, stretching from the Fort Wayne area, Lafayette, and points southward there, especially along in south of the US 24 corridor. We expect the greatest flooding concerns through Saturday morning. And again, even though the flood watches are in effect through the weekend, we will have flooding concerns well into next week, as it's going to take that long for our rivers and waterways to drain before those hydrologic issues eventually go away. Here's a look at how much rain we can really expect through Sunday morning here across highest areas. Actually, let me get that banner out of the way here on the bottom so you can see down near Evansville. Again, anywhere between an inch to an inch and a half across northern Indiana from Gary to South Bend. And again, this is not a one-day total. This is through the next few days here, through Sunday morning. Areas south of Indianapolis, central and southern Indiana, you guys are in the hot seat for the highest amount of rainfall through Sunday. Again, significant accumulations of rain here expected for southern Indiana. Bloomington, Richmond, Vincennes, 3 to 5 inches with a few isolated higher amounts possible near a half a foot, 6 inches of rain. Can't be ruled out in a few isolated locations there in your deeper orange there around the Bloomington area, Vincennes. Further south, the Jasper area, 4 to 7 inches of rain through Sunday morning. And you go closer to the Ohio River there, Evansville, New Albany. You guys could see anywhere between 6 and 7 inches with isolated higher amounts closer to the Ohio River, especially concentrated in far southwest lower Indiana. Think about Vernon, Evansville. You guys could see significant rainfall through Sunday morning. This is going to cause significant river flooding across the region as well. And as a result of the heavy rain that we are expecting, the Weather Prediction Center, not to get this confused with the Storm Prediction Center, who handles severe weather, the Weather Prediction Center, or WPC, their responsibility is issuing outlooks for flooding concerns or hydrologic issues, as it's called. As you can see, Indiana, we are in the gun here for flooding issues. We have a low risk, a marginal risk in green areas south of the Fort Wayne area. And then we have a slight risk, which is a 2 out of 4 in areas in yellow. But look across southern Indiana, stretching from Vincennes, just south of Richmond, we have a moderate risk in effect here today across Indiana. And this is for thunderstorms that'll start to develop here really from here on out. These showers and thunderstorms will move into southern Indiana. And these thunderstorms will likely move over the same areas again and again, really promoting that flash flood risk through the overnight hours and into tomorrow as well. We may see a little bit of a break in between these rain showers. Again, they're kind of come in waves. And we'll talk about that as we go through the models here. We'll time it out for you. But today is not the only risk for flooding in Indiana. Tomorrow, widespread, this is Friday, across Indiana, the majority of the state, over 75% of the state, is in a slight risk, a level 2 out of 4 for flash flooding and excessive rainfall. Again, our next weather system will move in, kind of our next wave will move in, bringing another round of heavy precipitation across the state on Friday, but it doesn't stop there. On Saturday, we have a high risk for Evansville, Mount Vernon, and extreme southwest Indiana there, with a moderate risk expanding from Vincennes, Bloomington, just south of Richmond. That is a 3 out of 4 for excessive rainfall, with a slight risk from the Fort Wayne area and southward, generally south of US 24 there, with marginal risk stretching, including Fort Wayne, just south of Angola, over towards the Lafayette area on Saturday. So again, 3 days where we have at least a moderate risk somewhere in the state of Indiana. Tomorrow, it is just grazing our extreme southwest portions of Indiana. But again, something to watch very, very closely, as it won't take much to create renewed flooding and ponding throughout the state of Indiana as our soils are saturated, our rivers are swelled. Again, doesn't take much to see those hydrologic issues there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in the models here and go ahead and time it out here. Here's the 12Z run. This was our afternoon run here on the HRRR. This is just a numerical model, one of the many forecast models that we use here at ISCN. Here we are today. Here's 1 p.m. Here's right about now. Some showers and thunderstorms getting ready to move into southern Indiana, if not already. Some of these could have some pretty heavy rainfall rates to them. We have a lot of moisture to work with today. This is all associated with what we call a frontal boundary. And this frontal boundary is acting almost like a stationary front. It's just stationary. The key word is stationary. It's not moving anywhere. It's going to stay settled across the Ohio River Valley here over the next few days through the weekend before another system comes and boots it out, as we have a colder pattern coming in next week. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Here we are today. Showers and thunderstorms moving in. Again, we may see a little bit of a break. Again, this rain will come in waves where we have spurts of heavy rain followed by a break before the next wave moves on in. That's really what the pattern is going to be here through Sunday morning. Here we are at 3 p.m. here today. Again, showers and thunderstorms becoming very heavy here later this evening into the overnight hours. A few of these could be strong. I don't expect widespread severe weather, nothing like what we saw yesterday, but we do have a marginal risk across far southern Indiana today to accompany some of those stronger storms. Again, the greatest risk here today, damaging winds and small hail would be the greatest risk. Again, tornado risk very, very low today. Not completely zero, but again, very low. Greatest risk, gusty winds and some small hail associated with that. We do have a slight risk trying to sneak into far southern Indiana, such as Harrison County, Spencer County, way down there in far southern Indiana. But again, mainly a marginal risk for far southern Indiana today. Back to the model runs here. Here's 6 p.m. Again, heavy training showers and thunderstorms. And if we play this out, you can see how they're really training this heavy band of concentrated precipitation here, really falling over the same areas again and again and again. And that's going to be the going trend here as we go throughout the rest of the work week here and into the weekend. This is why we have a heightened flood risk down here in moderate for southern Indiana, is because of our heavy showers and thunderstorms that'll just be persistent across the southern half of Indiana. As we go into the overnight hours, here is midnight Friday morning. Again, maybe a little bit of a break late tonight before our next wave moves in early tomorrow morning, early Friday morning. Again, we could have some renewed showers and thunderstorms. Again, a few of these could be strong. Gusty winds and small hail can't be ruled out later tonight into early tomorrow morning across far southern Indiana. Think Evansville, Bloomington, Bedford, and south of the Richmond area could get in on some heavier thunderstorms. Perhaps a few strong storms can't be ruled out as well. As we go into Friday morning here, again, maybe a little bit of a lull. Again, these will kind of move in waves, right? We get a break here early Friday morning here before the next wave moves in by Friday afternoon. Here we are at 2 p.m. But look, again, heavy showers and thunderstorms still concentrated across southern Indiana. And this is what we're going to see here. Here we are Friday at 3 p.m. Again, just like the what we saw today, a few of these storms could be strong to locally severe. Small hail, damaging winds are the primary threat, followed by a brief spin-up tornado. Cannot be ruled out. However, that is a very low risk on the spectrum here. Not as high as what we saw yesterday, thankfully. And here's our next break here. This is Friday evening at 7 p.m. We have another wave moving in Friday night into early Saturday morning. This wave in particular, we're going to have to keep an eye on for some severe weather, mainly in the form of gusty winds, some damaging winds, some guidance wants to have a line of storms moving through early Saturday morning after midnight Friday night. We're going to have to keep an eye on that. And then here we are. Here is 9 p.m. Friday night into Saturday morning. So again, very heavy rainfall moving back into the state of Indiana. And to accompany this risk, the Storm Prediction Center has the majority of Indiana south of US 24 in a marginal risk. That's a 1 out of 5. So pretty low risk. But again, kind of some messy convection, maybe some gusty winds on the leading edge. Can't be ruled out with the greatest risk for severe weather across southwest lower Indiana. This is on Friday, mainly Friday night into early Saturday morning is the time frame here for the greatest potential tomorrow night. Again, 2 out of 5 in areas in yellow, just south of Terre Haute, Vincennes, Evansville, and Jasper. Again, damaging winds, primary risk, secondary risk, and perhaps a brief spin-up tornado. But again, not a very high risk for tornadoes Friday night into Saturday morning. But again, very, very heavy rainfall here. This will bring renewed flooding and including flash flooding as well. You can almost see it almost stalls out across southern Indiana where we have these training showers and thunderstorms once again going over the same areas that have already been pounded with inches of rain here over the past couple of days. Significant river flooding will result. So if you live in a flood-prone area, low-lying area, or near a river, or have a river that you need to cross to get to work, keep an eye on those water levels. Keep an eye on your local EMA posting updates on your county's alert level. Again, flooding could cause significant issues across southern Indiana. Watch for washouts, swollen rivers, significant river flooding as well, including rivers such as the White River. Both forks of the White River as well could see some significant river flooding here into the weekend. And as we move into Saturday and into Sunday morning, this will be the end of our rainfall as we have another pattern change coming in that'll kind of boot that stationary front out of the area and bring a drier pattern into the region for the first time in a while. But again, our rivers will take many days after the precipitation has ended to finally recede below flood stage. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at our rivers here across the Midwest here. Again, here's a zoomed out view here of the eastern United States. You can see all these areas here of heightened flooding, all these purple squares, red squares, orange squares. These are all rivers in flood stage here. Let's go ahead and zoom into Indiana here again. Many of our rivers here are predicted to be in major flood stage here, especially across southern Indiana, including the White River. Let's go ahead and look at a flood gauge here. This is the East Fork of the White River near Seymour, Indiana. We'll take a look at the river here and where it's forecasted to crest. Again, record is 21 feet. We're forecasted to crest at 19.4 here. And again, that's not today. This is a couple days down the road is when it's expected to crest. So again, a long-lived flood event here across southern Indiana. Let's look at the White River here in Edwardsport, Indiana. A similar situation here, flirting with major flood stage. Major flood stage is expected at 25 feet at this location near Edwardsport, and we are expected to crest at 12 a.m. on April 9th at 25 feet before we recede. And again, this trend line may fluctuate up or down depending on where there's heavier showers and thunderstorms train. But again, the highest concentration of major flood stage gauges on our rivers will be across southern Indiana, where we expect significant flooding concerns. And again, we already have really high. Let's take a look at the National Weather Service in Indianapolis here. They have put out some pretty strong wordings here for the flood risk that we are going to see here across Indiana, with the highest area for most significant impacts highlighted in purple there, Evansville, including Indianapolis over by the Richmond area, and south of around the Terre Haute area as well. They say significant flooding is expected to develop. Moderate flooding is expected with major flooding distinctively possible. They have a 70% chance of moderate flooding with over 50% chance of major flooding on much of the East Fork, White, and parts of the lower White River basins in southern Indiana. So again, significant confidence here in major flooding here across Indiana. Again, that is why we came on here to do this live stream. Though we have chances for severe weather, the flooding risk is going to be of greatest concern here going forward with our prolonged days here of heavy rainfall across southern Indiana here. Let's go ahead and go to the comments here. We got Shannon in here, Jessica in here, Marilyn's in here, Joyce is in here. We got Julie and Lexi. What is going on, guys? If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in here. We're going to jump back to the models here, and let's go ahead and talk about the long run. What does it look like going forward here now that we have our largest severe weather event out of the way, but we do have periodic chances for active weather here near term. Let's go ahead and talk about that here. Let's go ahead and do our temperature anomaly here again. This is going to be our temperatures here. Again, above average temperatures in reds and whites here, below average temperatures in blues and greens. This has been the going trend here for the last couple of weeks. We've had warmer than average conditions on the eastern half of the United States and colder than average conditions on the western United States. This has kept us very active in terms of severe weather, rain, and the overall weather pattern as well across the eastern half of the United States. But that's about to change here going forward as we get through the weekend in the next week. We're going to see a pattern change where we're going to see this ridge. So the jet stream is kind of like this, where it comes way down, it sinks across the western United States, and we have a ridge that has been over the eastern half of the United States, drawing up our warm air from the Gulf of Mexico. That's about the change here as we go into next week. Let's go ahead and play it out here. As you can see, here comes our warm temperatures getting pushed off to the east here, out of the lower Midwest Valley here. And here we are in the next week. This is Sunday, 5 a.m. Sunday. You can see our warmest temperatures have been shoved off to the south and east, out of the Ohio Valley and towards the southeastern United States, with colder than average temperatures moving back into the picture here. And this will be the play here over the next week and a half to 2 weeks across the Great Lakes region here. Again, colder than average temperatures will move back in here through about April 6th through about the 13th or 16th. We'll see a trend for below average temperatures. And this will also keep our severe weather at bay during this time frame here over the next 1 to 2 weeks. So that's some good news there on the horizon. However, there is a catch. The bad news is a lot of our early spring flowers have begun to bloom. Some flowering trees have begun to bloom as well across Indiana. This colder than average pattern will bring renewed chances for freezes and frost across the entire state of Indiana. All the way from the Indiana-Michigan border down to the Ohio River. Everyone will have chances at frost and freezes here over the next week and a half to 2 weeks as we enter this colder pattern here. I don't know if any frost advisories or freeze warnings will be issued, as we're not technically in the growing season yet for Indiana, but we're close with having a lot of our winter annuals coming up and blooming, as well as some trees as well. So again, we're close to the growing season. We'll have to see what the Weather Service decides there going forward. But again, if you have any flowers up over the next couple weeks, keep an eye on your nighttime temperatures as we have heightened chances to see 20s and 30s in the overnights as we enter this colder pattern change. With that being said, colder weather also brings chances for, okay, don't shoot the messenger, but we could see some wet snowflakes over the next couple of weeks here. Again, no significant accumulations here. Here's our stationary front draped across the Ohio River Valley. Here's our pattern change. That blue stuff is, in fact, snow. I know it's gross. Again, no significant accumulations or anything like that expected here over the next 2 weeks, but it just goes to show that we do have a colder pattern entering the picture here, and we could see some wet snowflakes perhaps mixing in at times over the next week and a half to 2 weeks as we enter this colder pattern here. So again, winter is not over yet here in Indiana, but we could have some chances for some rain and snow over the next 2 weeks here across Indiana. But the good news is no major accumulations or anything like that. That's the one thing about when you get these late season winter setups. The effects are usually really short lived. We have a higher sun angle. The ground temperatures are warmer this time of year. It really limits the overall effects. However, when we do get these colder temperatures, it's always good to cover up our plants and sensitive that are sensitive to the colder weather. Let's go ahead and time out our temperatures here. Near term. Again, here we are today. Our cold front is, you can see where it's draped here across Northwest Indiana, not getting out of the upper 40s today. Gary, Indiana, Michigan City, Indiana. Again, you guys are in the 40s today with areas south and along US 24 in the 60s and even upper 60s across southern Indiana here this afternoon. That'll change here as they go into the overnight hours. As the rain moves in, it could cool our temperatures down a little bit. Into the mid to upper 50s here this afternoon into the overnight hours. Our cold front begins to move on through before warming back up into tomorrow afternoon. Then you can see our nighttime temperatures here. Lows tonight, still above freezing. Upper 30s, though, expected across far northern Indiana, especially along the I-90 corridor. And then as we move on to Tomorrow here, not warming up all that much. Southern Indiana, you guys are in the 60s tomorrow, with central and northern Indiana in the low 50s to upper 40s. And it doesn't really waver too much beyond that either before our cold front moves through Saturday night into Sunday, bringing our temperatures a little bit lower into next week. So that's a look here at what we have going through over the next 1 to 2 weeks here. Again, largest concern right now is the flooding risk that we have here across Indiana. We'll go ahead and do a recap on that. Again, Indiana has a moderate risk somewhere in the state of Indiana for the next 3 days, which is very unusual for this time of year, with a slight risk and marginal risk also in the state of Indiana over the next 3 days. Here is today. Moderate risk extending from Vincennes over towards the Bedford area in southern Indiana. Slight risk areas such as Winchester, Indiana, Indianapolis down to Terre Haute in areas in yellow, and then a marginal risk or a low risk for excessive rainfall stretching from about the Decatur area, Kokomo, over just south of the Lafayette area in a marginal risk, which is a 1 out of 4 for excessive rainfall. Not to get this confused with the Storm Prediction Center's severe weather outlook. This is a responsibility for the Weather Prediction Center. They handle all the rainfall outlooks that could be problematic for the state of Indiana and all over the continental United States, just as the Storm Prediction Center handles all the severe weather outlooks. Here we are tomorrow, Friday. You can see that yellow slight risk expands to nearly the entire state of Indiana, with the exception along the I-90 corridor across northern Indiana, Gary, South Bend, Angola. You guys are in a marginal risk tomorrow, with that moderate risk still hanging on a sliver into Indiana near the Mount Vernon area. We're going to have to watch that very closely. Again, it doesn't take a lot more rainfall to really cause significant issues in Indiana, as our soils are highly saturated and our water tables are very high. As we go into Saturday, a moderate risk renews in southern Indiana once again, with a high risk creeping into southern Indiana. Again, a high risk is a 4 out of 5 or 4 out of 4. That is at least a 70% chance of excessive rainfall within that pink area there, and at least a 40% chance or higher of excessive rainfall in red. So again, very high probabilities there of flash flooding, excessive runoff, and significant river flooding as a result anywhere in Indiana over the next couple of days and into next week. So again, if you live in an area that is prone to river flooding, ponding, or anything like that, again, monitor your water levels closely and have a plan in place or an alternative route that you can go to if you do need to go to town, go to work, or anywhere else you'd like to go. Be ready for those road closures across southern Indiana, especially where we have the highest risk for significant river flooding. Again, flood watches are in effect for 2/3 of Indiana, stretching from DeKalb County all the way over to the Lafayette area and points southward there in green. That is our flood watch. Very heavy rainfall is possible from late yesterday. We saw that through Saturday due to multiple wave passages. This is from the National Weather Service in Indianapolis. Wave passages meaning that we're going to have a couple different systems here riding this boundary that are going to bring rounds of rain. That's kind of what the wave term means. We're going to see periods of decreased activity followed by periods of heightened activity where we're going to see that increased precipitation. Rainfall rates could surpass 1.5 inches an hour in some of the heavier cores of these showers and thunderstorms. So again, a lot of moisture content to work with, a lot of juice for these storms to work with, and they're not going anywhere either. They're going to work across the same areas again and again and again, with our highest rain totals expected across southern Indiana. Yes, some areas across southern Indiana could see 1/2 foot of rain through Sunday morning, if not more, especially around the Evansville, Mount Vernon areas. 6 to 7 inches plus highlighted in pink there of rainfall, with the highest amounts and highest confidence of greater than 1/2 foot across extreme southwest Indiana near the Evansville, Mount Vernon areas there in the boot of Indiana. Points northward, Vincennes, Bloomington, you guys can see 3 to 5 inches with locally higher amounts there, and that darker shade of orange, 4 to 7 in red, and 2 to 4 areas in orange, including places like Muncie, Indianapolis, Terre Haute. Again, 2 to 4 inches is a significant rain amount on a good day, let alone looking at amounts higher than that, especially areas across southern Indiana. This will cause significant river flooding here and hydrologic impacts that will last well beyond the weekend and into next week, as it's going to take many days, if not a couple of weeks, for our rivers to fully drain back to where they were a couple of days ago. little bit less in areas in yellow, 2 to 3 inches, inch and a half to 2 inches for Fort Wayne, 1 inch to an inch and a half for Gary and South Bend. Again, lesser amounts the further north you go, with the heaviest amounts across southern Indiana. And areas highlighted in that pink hatch area, flash flooding and major river flooding are of greatest concern within that area, highlighted in pink there, where you see that dashed outline from Richmond just south of Terre Haute and points southward. Again, a significant risk of flash flooding, excessive ponding, could have a few washouts as well, meaning some culverts or some pipes under the roadways may wash out as a result of the amount of water flow that is needed to drain off of area roadways. Terrain down there is rocky, it's hilly, it can't hold the water like it can across areas in northern Indiana where our soils are more clay. Down south, we don't have much clay. We have a lot of rocks. We have a lot of rolling hill terrain that can only amplify the flood sweat as well. Even a few landslides can't be ruled out either across far southern Indiana. So again, something to keep an eye on over the next 2 to 4 days. Go back to the comments here. Yeah, don't have any new questions in here. If you guys have any, feel free to put them in. We'll go ahead and answer them here for you while we are in here. But again, the flooding risk is of greatest concern here over the next 2 to 5 days. But we do have a severe weather risk to talk about that can't be ignored. Today, we are at a marginal risk across southern Indiana, including places like Jasper, Evansville, Corydon. And we do have a slight risk trying to sneak its way north of the Ohio River. Places like Harrison County, Perry County, kind of right in there, hugging the peninsulas there of those counties across extreme southern Indiana. But again, widespread severe weather not expected tonight, but we could have a few stronger storms, small hail, gusty winds as your primary risks associated with those. Widespread severe weather is not expected, but we could have some peace ice, hail, and gusty winds. As we move into tomorrow, Friday, April 4th, our severe weather risk expands across Indiana. We have a marginal risk right along the US 24 corridor, stretching from Fort Wayne, north of Lafayette, just south of the Rensselaer area in northwest Indiana, and points southward there in green. That is a 1 out of 5, so a low chance of severe weather. Again, widespread severe weather, not expected, but we could have some gusty winds moving into Indiana. Again, your heavy rain threat will be the primary risk in any storm here moving into the weekend. A little bit higher of a risk, southwest Indiana, from Terre Haute, Vincennes, Jasper, Evansville. You guys are in a level 2 out of 5 for gusty winds. Small hail, and you can't rule out a brief tornado in that yellow area Friday night into Saturday morning as well. Again, this will likely be a line of storms that'll move through, not quite as potent as what we saw the other day. Again, this will be a nocturnal threat. We don't have our daytime instability, but we do have a lot of moisture, so it'll be a very heavy rain event moving into Indiana Friday night into Saturday morning. As we get into Saturday, we could have a few lingering showers and thunderstorms across the state. Areas in yellow, 2 out of 5. Damaging winds, small hail, and a spin-up tornado cannot be ruled out in areas in yellow. This is Saturday, April 5th. Areas stretching from Evansville, Jasper, Corydon, and points southeastward towards the Cincinnati area as well. Fort Wayne, Lafayette, you guys are just general thunder for you. Indianapolis, not in a severe risk on Saturday at this time. Again, our severe weather risk will likely come Friday night into Saturday morning with some more storms developing Saturday afternoon, especially across southeast Indiana. Go ahead and take one more look here at the models here. We'll go ahead and time it out for you one more time here. Again, multiple rounds of rain moving into Indiana, multiple waves of rain. So we may see heightened periods of increased precipitation where the rain is quite heavy. And then we might go through some drier periods where we see kind of a lull in activity. We're in between those waves, so to speak. So here we are right now. Rains and thunderstorms getting ready to work into southern Indiana. A few of these could be heavy at time. Rainfall rates in excess of an inch an hour are possible in some of the heavier thunderstorms. Again, greatest severe risk south of the Ohio River into Kentucky, but we could have a few isolated strong storms. Can't be ruled out north of the Ohio River. Small hail, gusty winds, primary risk with those. Here we are at 6 p.m. here tonight. Again, maybe a little bit of a break here mid-afternoon between waves. First wave early this afternoon, and then a little bit of a break before our heaviest rain moves in later tonight across central and southern Indiana. Here, 6 p.m. tonight, a lot of us are on our way home. Again, we're going to have to watch for ponding, runoff across southern Indiana. These showers and thunderstorms will be very heavy, and they could bring a flash flood risk associated with them as well. So be on alert for any flood advisories that are issued for excessive rainfall by your local National Weather Service office. And here we are tonight. Again, the heaviest rain is expected to come in this evening after 5 p.m. across southern and central Indiana. This rain could be very heavy, with rainfall rates in excess of an inch an hour in some of the heavier bands or cells that do move into southern Indiana. A few of these could be strong. Again, gusty winds, small hail, primary risk, but widespread severe weather is not expected at this time. And here we go into Friday morning. Again, a little bit of a break here once we get into Friday night into Saturday morning. And then here is Friday morning at 4 a.m. Renewed showers and thunderstorms across far southern Indiana, Evansville, Bedford. A few of these could be strong to locally severe, small hail, gusty winds associated with those. And then we get a little bit of a break before Friday afternoon into Saturday morning here. Again, our next wave moves in by this point in time. Renewed chances of heavy showers and thunderstorms moving into, once again, you guessed it, southern Indiana, getting the bulk of it here. Again, small hail, gusty winds, and torrential rainfall possible here. Again, Friday night into Saturday is when we expect the heaviest precipitation to fall across southern Indiana. Wouldn't be surprised to see a few rainfall rates over an inch and a half during the Friday night, Saturday morning period across southern and central Indiana. So again, torrential rainfall expected there, as well as the risk for a few severe thunderstorms. As you move into Friday night into Saturday morning, here's 10 p.m. on Friday. This is where our marginal risk comes into play for the majority of Indiana, with our slight risk across southwest lower Indiana associated with this line here. Could have some gusty showers and thunderstorms here along the leading edge. But again, very, very heavy rainfall is expected here Friday night into Saturday associated with this. Can't rule out a few isolated tornadoes here across southwest lower Indiana. We have a little bit more spin to work with, but again, nothing significant, nothing like we saw the other night, with the main hazards being small hail, gusty winds with a non-zero tornado risk. But again, torrential rainfall will be the biggest hazard here with the rain moving in here this weekend. Here we are at 3 a.m. Saturday morning here, back into southern Indiana once again by 5 a.m. Saturday morning, before slowly moving out throughout the day on Saturday, and we are dry with a few isolated showers by Sunday. So that is a look at the extended forecast here. Again, a lot going on, both severe weather and hydrologically speaking. We have that flood risk across the entire state of Indiana, with significant river flooding possible, if not likely, especially across central and southern Indiana. So with that being said here, guys, I don't see any other new questions here. We'll go ahead and hop off. If you guys missed anything, feel free to go back to the beginning of the chat. We talked about the timing, our severe weather chances, and our flood risks that we have present here in the state of Indiana through Saturday. So with that being said here, guys, thanks for watching. Great to see you, and we will see you next time.